The latest tech.
People love iPhone, and it's an important part of our daily lives.
Interviews.
You see far too many products that come on the market that you look at that you say, was a blind person ever even consulted for something like this?
Accessibility.
The most interesting thing over the last couple of years is the emphasis on gaming and accessibility.
This is DoubleTap TV.
Hi guys, welcome to DoubleTap TV. I am Stephen Scott.
And I am Marc Aflalo. Stephen, it is that time of the year, and I am not talking just about bikini season.
No, thank goodness for that, because otherwise that would take the show in a very different direction, and that is one demonstration you don't need to see. But no, you're absolutely right. We're very excited because WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, the time when we learn about lots of interesting new software and possibly hardware from the fruit company, Apple. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I think this is the year, Mark. I think this is the year.
Is this the year?
I'm going to see the product. This is the year I'm going to see the product. Finally, I have been talking about on my daily radio show for what feels like forever.
Apple Car, right? That's what you're waiting for, the Apple Car.
Exactly. I am waiting for Apple Car. That might not be this year. I'm guessing not. But I think we might be, and I know I'm jumping ahead here. I just get so excited about this because I think this might be the year we see Apple Glass, on whichever form that is.
I listen, I'm not going to hold you to it. I think it's important that when we talk about WWDC, I think it's important when we talk about anything about Apple before they make an announcement, that we have to throw out some kind of disclaimer that says anything we may talk about on this show is purely speculative.
Yeah.
We've got no clue. Just like the people who call me up leading up to events like this saying, you know what, you're in the industry, you know what they're going to announce, right? I'm like, if I knew what they were going to announce and I told you, I'd be in jail, I'd be violating some kind of NDA, I'd be handing over my bank account to Apple. Nobody knows, but we can speculate and we can hope. And I like you, Stephen, I'm hoping that we are finally going to see some kind of augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, something from Apple? Do you think it's going to happen, really?
Oh yeah, I think this might be the year. No, look, I think we should, before we get into all this, I think we should explain a little bit about what this event is and why this is so important. Because to geeks like us, WWDC is the moment in the year when we really get a chance to learn about how Apple are developing their software. And more importantly than that, how they're opening up their software to developers to create the next level of apps. And that is why we think this is the time when we will learn all about this new headset, this new pair of glasses, this new whatever it is actually going to be. Because essentially it has to be a platform where developers will create applications like they do currently for the iPhone or for the Apple Watch or for the Mac or whatever it might be. So what Apple, I imagine, and I am just speculating here, mixed in with a lot of hope, that they are actually going to announce the platform at this event, and then we can then learn how developers can take that and run with it and develop apps for it. That's the bit I'm excited about, and that's why I think it's at this particular event we'll actually see this product.
Well, I mean, if you think back to Apple's major product category announcements, it happens at WWDC. There's something that happens at their Worldwide Developers Conference that really leads to it, whether it's the new iPhone or the first iPhone. That was at a Macworld. It wasn't WWDC yet.
Yeah.
That was a Macworld. We first saw the iPhone. We first saw the trash can Mac Pro. We saw previews of devices like that. It's an opportunity for Apple to talk to developers and give them excitement and give them a reason to continue to develop for their platform. So hopefully we'll see this, obviously, some kind of glass. Hopefully we'll see what's coming next in their operating systems, which gives us a glimpse to what is coming down the road for Apple across the board. And this is also an opportunity, not necessarily the day of the big keynote event, which is coming up in about a week's time, but in the days after, we get to drill down on things like accessibility, Stephen, or we get to really, they go out into these breakout groups with developers on different themes, and thankfully it's all remote these days, so we're able to even join some of these conversations and hear how they're thinking about certain elements of what they're doing. And accessibility actually does play a pretty big role in that part of it, even though it doesn't necessarily make its way onto the main stage. Well, we've got someone lined up to join us on this week's show to talk all about the Worldwide Developers Conference. He is the editor of MobileSyrup. Patrick O'Rourke is standing by, and after a quick break, he will join us to prognosticate everything we might see out of the Worldwide Developers Conference next week from Apple. So stick around.
You're watching DoubleTap TV. Get involved. Follow us at DoubleTap On Air or email us feedback@doubletaponair.com. DoubleTap TV will be right back. You're watching DoubleTap TV.
Back on DoubleTap TV, talking all things WWDC, which stands for the Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple, Stephen.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited about this. And we have a very special guest waiting in the wings, Marc.
Yes, we do. His name is Patrick O'Rourke. He is the editor of MobileSyrup, talks all things Apple. Patrick, thank you for being here this week.
Thanks for having me.
So Patrick, we've been talking about what I think might be coming along at WWDC this time around, and let's just say it involves glasses. But from your point of view, what do you think we're likely to see at this year's Apple event?
We'll see all of the software that we see every year, like WWDC, it's developer focused. So they're going to talk about the software. You're going to learn about iOS 17, the new version of Mac OS, iPad OS. But like for someone like me who's more interested in hardware, we're going to see, hopefully, that's at least what the rumors are indicating, Apple's first mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality headset.
Do you find it's late in the game for them? Like, I know that everybody says Apple waits. They kind of want to see what everybody else is doing, and they don't release a product till it's ready. But this is the first year that we've seen rumors or heard the rumors that there's a lot of push internally from the execs to just get this product out the door. And that's not something we've heard before from Apple.
Yeah, I do think it's, to be quite honest, pretty late. Like, in my mind, at least, the boat has sailed with virtual reality to some extent. Like, I know we've seen PSVR 2 from Sony very recently on the PS5, but generally speaking, like even people that I know, they're not that into VR in the same way that they were when the Oculus Rift launched and the HTC Vive launched. Even myself, like I still occasionally dabble in it, but like I had a VR column on MobileSyrup that I did at one point monthly, and I don't do that anymore. I think with this device, the big thing will be, is Apple going to take the established concept of mixed reality and do something unique with it? Are they going to build on it in a meaningful way? And some of the leaks that we've seen indicate that. Like there's, for example, the possibility of a digital crown-like control device that would allow users to go from the virtual world to the real world just with the twist of a dial. That could be really cool. It's supposed to be far more comfortable than other virtual reality headsets, kind of borrow from a bunch of different Apple devices in terms of the materials used to build it. It's supposed to have decent battery life. There's all these things that we're expecting that have been rumored. But the one deterrent, especially in my end, is the price. It's supposed to be like something in the range of $3,000 Canadian, that's more than like the Oculus, the latest Oculus Pro headset that Meta just revealed. Like that is a very expensive device, and that's a tough sell for consumers.
We're hearing a lot. You mentioned virtual reality and where, Apple might be late to the game in this, but I'm hearing more about augmented reality as opposed to virtual reality. Now, of course, we're talking, I guess, about a mixed reality headset. Again, we don't really know. And is that the point? Do we actually know if they are going to go down the VR route? I mean, personally, I do not understand what Apple would do in this space anyway. We've never really seen anything like this from Apple before. So could it be that we kind of get thrown a bit of a curveball here and actually it's more of a glasses type device which is AR focused, not VR focused?
I don't know if I would say that I expect it to be AR focused. I think it'll be a mix, right? You'll see the like standard virtual reality focused games, but I think Apple will also play around with augmented reality quite a bit. So you're definitely on the right track there. They've been doing that a lot with the iPad Pro and the augmented reality efforts Apple's placed over there. So I think that was kind of laying the groundwork for AR in terms of this device and getting developers interested in it and working on it. So I think, I guess to answer your question, it'll be everything. And that's why sometimes bloggers that are covering it like myself, we just straight up say mixed reality because it's the lines are expected to be blurred, right? Like I think you'll have apps that'll like feature augmented reality elements and also virtual reality elements. And some of that will come into that digital crown like device.
Patrick, does the introduction of a device like this at a developers conference emphasize the importance of developers buying into it?
Yeah, 100%. If it is shown off at this particular conference, WWDC, it's to get developers hyped about it, to get them interested in it, to get them starting to make third-party apps and software for the device, because that's one of the rumors that we've seen pretty repeatedly over the last couple of years, is that there isn't like a killer app for it yet. There's not something that like someone would see, the average Apple user, and be like, I need that. I need to go out. I got to drop $3,000 on this device, and I need to start wearing a virtual reality headset all the time. And I think Apple is hoping that a developer will come up with that if they're able to present it at WWDC in an exciting way ahead of its like eventual consumer release down the line.
Well, that's an important part of this, right? We may well see the device at Apple's WWDC event, but it's not guaranteed when we will actually be able to buy it. Any ideas, any rumors circulating when it may actually be released?
There haven't been, actually, but that's exactly what I expect 100%. I think that we'll see it revealed, and then it won't come out maybe until the fall. But then, even as I'm saying that, I'm kind of second guessing it, because Apple wants to focus on the Apple Watch and the iPhone in the fall, right? Like that's what they reveal every year. So it could even be farther out. It might even be like 6-7 months from now before we actually see it come out. And again, in an effort maybe to get developers to create that killer app that they really want to see for the device in order to sell it to consumers.
Let's talk about, other hardware, because, Apple just over 2 years ago promised that all their computers and their devices are going to be over to their own silicon. And there's one holdout right now, which is the Mac Pro. And I think that we're all, anybody in the geeking out on Apple hardware is waiting for what Apple is going to do with the next Mac Pro. And let me throw this one out at you, because this is my prognostication, is that a Mac Pro might actually just be a Mac Studio with some kind of chassis that goes along with it to make it pro, that allows you to throw in those add-on cards and make it more powerful, because that Mac Studio is a super powerful device. What do you think we're going to see in a Mac Pro? Do you think we're going to see a brand new category, brand new design, or is it going to be some kind of hybrid here?
The rumor is that it's still going to be the cheese grater that we're all aware of. That I actually like. I remember when that was revealed, and a lot of people were really down on it, but when I saw it in person, it looked way different than it did in the pictures, and I kind of liked the look of it. But that's the rumor, is that it's going to have a new chip, likely the M2 Ultra chip, and it'll still feature the same design. That said, there are also rumors that the Mac Studio might be the first device to feature the M2 Ultra. So, I mean, you could be onto something with that theory. It's still kind of unclear.
I love that cheese grater too, because I have one in my rack behind me, kind of hidden behind here. The only thing I didn't like about it at the time was the $21,000 price tag that is currently blown away by computers at like $3,000 these days.
Which he hasn't stopped talking about for, I think, about a year and a half now, Patrick.
Listen, I leased it, okay? I don't have $21,000 to throw it on a computer.
It's a crazy price.
I leased it, and that lease is up, so I'm just kind of waiting there. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here, which is our iPhones and the software on not only our iPhones but the iPads. Are we at a point now where the hardware almost doesn't even matter anymore? Like, it's hard to see a difference from year to year anymore in the hardware, other than things like Dynamic Island, which really comes down to cool ways to use software. So are we at a point now where software is really overpowering the hardware we even have?
I think so, especially with Apple's ecosystem. I write about it quite a bit on MobileSyrup. Like smartphones, if you're dropping, whether it's Apple or Android or whatever, if you're dropping like $1,000 on a phone, it's going to be good, right? Like when we review devices, we struggle to find issues with them now at this point. And it's really the software that separates them. And that's what I've always seen as being the advantage for the iPhone, is the fact that its software just, in my mind, at least in my experience, runs smoother than Android, and it's a little bit easier to use. And there's also that big app ecosystem and it's a reliable app ecosystem at the same time too that Apple's built out over the years. But with iOS 17, it's not even expected to be like a big leap forward. So it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying in some ways. It's just going to be like, I've seen some people describe it as a tune-up. There won't be anything new. There won't be like a massive flagship new feature shown off at WWDC like we saw last year with the lock screen stuff that was really cool, and big Apple fans really liked it. It's just going to be like a stability update, maybe a couple of fun new features, but nothing major.
How do you keep your readers interested with this topic? Because, of course, there aren't as many major updates, revolutionary updates for sure, that we would have seen in the early days of the iPhone and the changes that came with, indeed, the new product categories like watch and iPad. Not much has changed. Like Marc was saying earlier, our devices, our hardware is pretty much the same with incremental updates, even in software terms. So how do you keep the readers entertained every day?
It's tough sometimes, to be quite honest. That's part of why we cover more than just smartphones now. We write about games, we cover apps way more, we write about streaming. That's a big new topic for us. Smartphones, and it's not just Apple, Android devices, they've reached this level of maturity where they're almost just a utility that everybody has, and they're all pretty good. They all work great. And even if you're jumping from iOS to Android, or Android to iOS, both operating systems are similar in a lot of ways. So it is tough to keep people interested in them. We do a lot of comparison pieces. That's something that's big for us. We still do the reviews that everybody knows us for, but it does get difficult sometimes trying to find ways to get excited about new devices. I think last year, for instance, with the iPhone 14, the dynamic island was a huge draw. I was very excited about it. I thought it was unique. It's not something we've seen other smartphone manufacturers do. It hasn't really panned out to what Apple wanted it to be quite yet. I think third-party support's lacking. But I guess to answer your question, that was something that I focused on in my reviews and my coverage, was the dynamic island. That was the one key, very interesting feature that I personally was hyped about. And we did see quite a bit of reader interest in it, but it is difficult sometimes because these devices are so, they're just so mature at this point that for the most part, every phone that you're going to buy is pretty good.
Are you ever surprised by some of the comments and feedback you get from readers as to things they might be interested in that you're like, oh, I didn't even go that way?
I think sometimes I'm surprised that when we cover certain Apple things, even if they're minor updates that we maybe are very familiar with, but readers aren't. I'm trying to think of how to explain this in the best way possible. There's some things that we cover that are more of like a Google Analytics play, I guess, or a Google search play, where we know what it is, readers know what it is, but people that stumble across MobileSyrup via, I don't know, like Google News or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever, some of the other platforms that we use, they might not be aware of that resource that we're creating, that very specific guide to, I don't know, change something specific in the settings on an iPhone. So sometimes we'll see like our core audience push back against those stories, and I'll try to like friendly explain to them like, no, this story is not for you. It's for the person who isn't as familiar with tech. So I think that's a bit of a constant battle for us in some cases, the resources that we put together, because they're kind of obvious to some people, but not to everybody.
Honestly, I think we're just getting started in this conversation. Patrick O'Rourke, stay with us. He is the editor at MobileSyrup, and he joins us here on DoubleTap TV today. We continue that conversation next.
Can't get enough DoubleTap TV? Subscribe to the podcast and get your fill of DoubleTap every day. Visit doubletaponair.com and follow us now. DoubleTap TV will be right back. You're watching DoubleTap TV.
Back on DoubleTap TV, talking all things WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. Continuing our conversation with Patrick O'Rourke, the editor of MobileSyrup.
I want to ask you a little bit, Patrick, about accessibility, because it's an area where we've seen huge growth and interest. Of course, for the disability community is essential that it is inside every product. But one thing we don't get a lot of is coverage in mainstream tech press. Now, obviously, we do have a show like DoubleTap TV here that covers it every week, and that's what we do. And we have our podcast and we have everything else. And, we thank AMI for allowing us to do this. But, in the mainstream world, there isn't a huge amount of accessible technology news, right? So is that something that you would consider changing? Would you consider essentially moving into that space? Are you?
You're totally right. We dabble in it sometimes when there's new accessibility features that come out, but to be totally honest, it's not something that we cover consistently. Like if there's a new feature, we'll write about it, and I think that's something that needs to change. I think you've seen that shift a little bit with some much bigger publications in the video game space. There's a lot of video games that are doing interesting things with accessibility. The Last of Us did all kinds of things with that. And again, like we've done the same thing. We've dabbled in it. And I think it's a very important topic. But for us, to be honest, it often comes down just to resources. We're a small but nimble team is what I like to describe us as. And I would love to cover more. And I think we should come up with a plan to do that. But it's just hard being a team of like 6 writers to be able to cover everything that we want to cover.
Patrick, if people want to find you, your personal Twitter handle, et cetera, how do they reach out?
Yeah, you can find me on MobileSyrup.com. I mostly edit things, but sometimes I still write stuff. And then you can find me on Twitter at Patrick_O'Rourke.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us this week and previewing WWDC, and we can't wait to have you on again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, guys, I'm so excited for WWDC to just kind of be here already. Patrick, thank you so much for being here this week. That is Patrick O'Rourke, the editor of MobileSyrup, Stephen.
Yeah, and so much great insight in there as well. But of course, it's all speculation and rumor. We don't really know. That's the thing. But we are going to find out soon, and you can be guaranteed we'll be talking about it lots here on DoubleTap TV, and of course on the podcast as well, which you can find on AMI Audio every single day at 12 noon Eastern, and also, as I say, available every day as a podcast. Just search for DoubleTap.
Well, on behalf of Patrick O'Rourke and Stephen Scott, I am Marc Aflalo. We'll catch you on our next episode.
Thanks for watching Double Tap. Send us your feedback to feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. Hosted by Marc Aflalo in Montreal and Stephen Scott in Glasgow. Producer Marc Aflalo. Editing and graphics Jordan Steves. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Social media Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Supervising Producer Michelle Dudas. Manager Programming AMI TV Lizanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Karen Nye. VP Content Development and Operations John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2023 Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.